Welcome back to the Better Than I Found It podcast, new week. And so we're sitting down again, recording a new episode for you guys. I'm pretty excited about this week's guest. That was a really cool recording. So excited for you guys to get the chance to hear that. But first, it is Monday of Masters Week, Coach. It's a bit different than usual because we're in November. But you're kind of known as a Masters and Major Championship wizard. Definitely a trivia wizard.
I would say a little bit of that in there, yes.
Okay, so a lot of people know that Coach McGraw can pretty much call out any major championship winner and sometimes some additional information. So we're going to test you real quick here.
Please.
Okay, so we'll stick with Masters. Let's go easy first. 2008.
That would be Trevor Immelman.
Okay. 1968.
1968 would be Bob Golby. That was the year that Roberto Di Vicenzo from Argentina signed an incorrect scorecard. His playing partner, Tommy Aaron, put a 4 on number 16, and he actually made a 3. So he had to take the higher score, and he lost by a shot. They were going to play a playoff. But I've never, ever considered that controversial because Bob Golby himself played good enough to at least tie. So it was a good deal. But yeah, it was devastating for Roberto.
Okay, good deal. 2 for 2. Let's see if we can go 3 for 3.
Yes.
1939.
1939 was that was Ralph Goodall. Ralph had won the 37, 38, and 39 Western Opens, the 37 and 38 U.S. Opens, and the 39 Masters. So the war came about, and he was one of those players that didn't come out on the other side of World War II as much of a player, and he was the best player going in. So, and the Western Open was considered a major in those days. So yes, that was his only Masters victory.
Wow. And so if you see Coach McGraw and you haven't caught on to this game, it is, history in the making every time you you see him throw a major championship out. He's got it done. I don't even bother Googling that. Cool. Well, you're definitely a Masters nerd. What are some of your favorite Masters memories through the years, Coach?
Well, the first one that I ever watched was a good memory because I was told by my dad, you need to watch this tournament, and I was only 9 years old. And George Archer won in 1969, became the tallest major champion in history at 6'6", was the first ping player to win a major with a ping putter. And then that summer, the British Open was won by Tony Jacklin with a ping putter. So I got a little trivia there for you. I remember that one. In 1975, I watched Jack Nicklaus battle with Johnny Miller and Tom Weiskopf in what I thought was going to be the greatest Masters that I would ever witness in my life. And Nicklaus made the 40-foot putt on 16. And Weiskopf and Miller both narrowly missed their birdies on the last hole. And then the best of all times, that was the 1986 Masters. And I've always watched the highlight tapes of that. And 2 days ago on the internet, I saw they had the telecast of it. So the actual full telecast minus the commercials so you could speed it up. And I watched it again, and I get chills every time I see what Jack Nicklaus did in 1986. He was 46 years of age. That golf tournament, those greens, they're not for an old man. Those are for youth, for people with nerves and guys that hit a long way. And Nicklaus was still hitting the ball great, but wasn't really putting that well early in the week, hadn't made anything. And then the last round, he got it going. And with 2 bogeys, he shot 65 and won by a shot over Greg Norman. That's my favorite.
Cool. I think that one's very well documented out there, 1986. Okay, I haven't prepared you for this, but let's pick one player each here for the 2020 Masters. Who's going to win it?
Okay, I'm going to go with Justin Thomas.
Okay. Reasoning? Any reasoning at all?
He's playing very well,
okay.
And he does hit the ball pretty far, and he's been putting pretty well. And I think JT's just probably ready to win one of those. And I feel like he's a definite favorite.
Okay, cool.
Who are you going with?
I'll go with Bubba Watson. He loves Augusta. His game suits that. He's won there twice. Do you know the years he won?
He won in 2012 and 2014.
Okay. Just checking. No, and then he's kind of been playing a little better lately.
He has.
I forget where he was close to the lead recently, but going with him. I'm excited to see what Bryson DeChambeau does, just as kind of a spectator, just see what happens.
Well, I wish I could be there when he's driving it over the trees on 13 into 14 fairway, because that will be something to remember at Augusta.
Yes. I hope we get to see it happen.
Yes.
Hopefully Charles Howell can play good, former podcaster, being from Augusta. But okay, so Bubba Watson and Justin Thomas it is. Few kind of housekeeping things before we transition to this week's guest. Coach's book, Better Than I Found It, is available at Amazon. And so we'd love for you guys to go check it out. You can go to www.betterthanifoundit.com, or you can go to Amazon and search the book. Any one sentence sales pitch there, Coach? on the book?
Thank you for throwing that in there. But yeah, it was a labor of love when I did it 3.5-4 years ago, and I still enjoy it today.
Yeah, we're thankful you did it. So check it out if you haven't already. Would love for you to check it out. We have, like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, we're kind of going to transition into a little bit of a winter period, so we're recording some podcasts ahead of time. We have posted a Q&A post on Facebook and Instagram. You can find us on Facebook, just put in Better Than I Found It podcast, and the same on Instagram. And so if you have any questions for Coach, we're getting ready to kind of do a Q&A if there's anything you're wondering about college golf or golf in general or whatever it may be. So head over there, find us there. Okay, so we're going into episode 16 and Masters Week, and we actually got a player in the field on the podcast this week, Coach. It's Webb Simpson. Really awesome guy. How do you know Webb, Coach?
Well, Webb was a really good junior player that wasn't coming to Oklahoma State when I was the assistant coach, but I did see him play a lot of junior golf. He became really close friends with Jonathan Moore, who played for me at Oklahoma State. And Jonathan won the NCAA championship, and he and Jonathan were really good friends. And but Webb played on my Palmer Cup team when I coached in 2007, and we talk a little bit about that in the podcast. But Webb is just truly one of the most authentic guys you're going to find in professional golf. People would say he's probably one of the nicest guys. Totally agree with that. But he's more than just a nice guy. He's a devout Christian who walks his faith, and he's very authentic in his faith. And so that will come through easily during the podcast. But, he gives a lot of golf insight, too, I thought, and about competition. And I learned so much from him relative to how competitive golf is played, and his story is pretty inspiring. And I just think Webb Simpson's one of the really good dudes playing pro golf, and I think you'll like hearing what he has to say.
It was a lot of golf insight, I thought.
Yes.
It was really, really good. I'm kind of like the conversation we had with Troy. I'm just curious when you see players have a different look and do different things. I even got a question snuck in this recording about why he played number 5 man in college. I just thought that's so cool. I mean, that speaks to the humility and just kind of turning over every stone. Like, how can I play better, and not putting your ego in the way of getting better. So,
well, I know he does it his own way, and I think there's a lot of value in that. He's ranked 8th in the world, playing in the Masters this week coming up. He's just a really good guy with a lot of talent and a great amount of self-belief as well.
Yeah. Awesome to have him on. Thanks so much, Webb, for coming on. Thanks, Coach, for working it out, and Brad Payne from CGF for kind of helping us with the recording. And anyways, hope you guys enjoy it. Here's Webb Simpson.
Welcome, Webb Simpson, to the Better Than I Found It podcast. I really appreciate you coming on today, Webb.
Yep, Coach. Thanks for having me. Happy to be on.
Absolutely. And we've got an additional, kind of a bonus podcaster here today, and that's Brad Payne. Brad is the president of College Golf Fellowship and one of the 2 PGA Tour chaplains. And I know he's a good buddy of yours, Webb. So welcome to Brad.
Hey, thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me, buddy.
This is great.
I've known Mike for a very, very, very long time. I know most of you know that Mike is really old, but I met him when he was a youngin'.
Okay, yeah, I was in my 30s. That was a good time. I remember my 30s, I think.
Compared to your age now, 30 is a youngin.
Wow, it really is. And speaking of young, Webb Simpson, you're only 35 years of age. You're just like a pup, still just right in the middle of it, aren't you, huh?
Well, I feel that way until I go on tour and everybody's between 20 and 25. And then I've got some gray hair to show for my age now. So the tour guys see me as an older player where I still feel young.
Well, you are young. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. That's crazy. So I'm gonna kind of go chronologically here just for a little bit. So starting with your childhood, you were born and raised in Charlotte, North Carolina. You still live there today, correct?
Yeah, born in Raleigh, moved to Charlotte when I got married. My wife's from here.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've been here 10 years now.
Okay, so you weren't in Charlotte as a youngster.
Correct. I grew up in Raleigh, grew up playing Carolina Country Club, and the head pro there, Ted Kegel, was just an amazing head pro. And I started when I was 9, so he was super instrumental, in me developing.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I think everybody I've talked to so far in this podcast has had somebody early in their career that kind of guided them and directed them, and that's great that you had that mentor or that leader for
Yeah.
you in your early career. That's great. You had 6 children in your family.
Yep.
See, I'm one of 7, so there's something special about growing up in a big family that people who don't grow up in big families just don't understand. Can you describe that?
Yeah, it's I think when you grow up in it, it's all you know. And what's funny about my family, Mike, my dad was the only child, and then he had 6 kids.
Oh, wow.
So you don't hear that much every day. But my mom was one of 4. Dowd, my wife, she's the oldest of 5, and now we have 5 kids. So coming up on Thanksgiving, Christmas, our holidays are crazy. But I think just as you would probably attest to, it's all I know, and the kitchen is a loud place in our house.
It should be a loud place. That was where a lot was going on. Talking, we had, when I was a boy, we had 3 meals a day. We didn't have snacks in between, so each of the meals was a very big event. And I was always hungry. And luckily, I had 5 sisters who were almost always trying to diet a little bit. And so I I got food off of their plates as much as and as often as I could. So. What was the ratio in your family of the 6 children?
So I had a brother and then 4 sisters.
Okay.
And then we have 1 son who's the oldest, James, and then 4 girls.
Okay. Wow.
So
girls dominate.
My son really, really, really wanted a brother. But I told him, I said, listen, bud, you don't understand this yet, but here's a couple good things about sisters. 1, I said, they're not going to take your clothes. They're going to fight with each other over clothes. And 2, when you get a little older and they have some friends over, you're probably going to be thankful because they'll probably have some pretty friends. So he looked at me like, I don't know what you're talking about. But I said, one day you'll appreciate it.
How old is James now?
James is 9.
Okay. Well, he doesn't understand yet, but he will. He'll appreciate that later. So you mentioned the pro that helped you early in your career, but talk to me about junior golf in North Carolina for you.
Yeah.
I remember you when I was the assistant golf coach at Oklahoma State for Mike Holder. I remember your name coming up, but I didn't see you play when you were young.
Yeah. So, Mike, my dad was so good at kind of helping me develop on a, tournament level wise. So my first tournament was like a local city tournament, and wait 6 months, I'd play another city tournament. And he really wanted me to graduate, and he wanted to kind of slow play me into bigger events. And I think he wanted to do that, 1, to see where I was going to finish, if I was any good. And 2, I think he wanted me to gain confidence. He knew if he threw me in as a 10 or 11-year-old in a big tournament, I finished last or close to last, it wouldn't do me any good. And so he was really big at trying to get me to be successful in the right way from the start. And so, I mean, a little thing I remember, I couldn't move back from the front tees to the white tees until I broke par, shot a certain score. And I did that all the way through. And my first national tournament, I was 13 years old. I played the Big I Invitational in Houston. And yeah, I just look back and I'm like, man, how did he know how to do that so well? Because there was a great progression. And I remember my dad and my swing coach, head pro Ted Kegel, told me, they pushed me to work hard. And their reason was at each level, competition's that much better. And I will tell you this. I remember getting to Wake Forest and being shocked. I mean, I was a senior in high school, winning the state championship, winning some even national junior tournaments. But I get to college and everybody that we played against was really good. And I knew that was going to be the case when I turned pro. But had my dad and Ted not prepared me over and over mentally that, hey, the next level is that much better, I think it would have been even harder for me.
I think that's a great lesson for parents and for junior golfers now, that so many kids want to graduate to another level of golf before they're really ready. And
Correct.
I always tell somebody, if you're not the city junior champion, why would you play in the state junior champion?
Exactly.
Figure out how to win at every level.
Yep. And that's huge. And I mean, I remember days we'd always play for something. We didn't have, I couldn't bet money when I was younger, but I'd bet like a Coke or milkshake or something. But I remember growing up playing with some older guys who were better, and they really helped me get better faster because one, like I said, they were better. And two, we always made the round mean something. I think too many juniors I've seen here at Quail Hollow where I live, they beat balls all day and they don't go play and learn how to feel, the pressure of a big shot or a big putt.
I was talking with Troy Denton, an instructor in Dallas just last week, and he was talking about that very same thing. He went from being a player when he was young, just all he wanted to do was play golf and learn the game that way, to all of a sudden becoming a range rat in college. And it really hurt his game. It hurt his progression. So I agree with you. I think kids ought to go out and play and put their putting stroke under pressure and then just enjoy the experience. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's great. Well, so you became one of the best junior players in the country. You moved along that. You were an AJGA Junior Golf All-American, obviously recruited by Jerry Haas at Wake Forest. And you went to college on an Arnold Palmer scholarship, which to me would have been one of the great honors certainly for a Demon Deacon, Wake Forest player, but just for any college player, that would be a great honor.
It was. I was stunned when I got the offer. And I remember, Mike, I narrowed it down to a couple places. I didn't want to go too far from my dad and my mom, and also my swing coach, Ted. I want to be able to drive home for a lesson from Ted. And my dad was a huge influencer in my game, not really a swing coach, but just kind of a mental life coach for me. Just, all those intangible lessons I learned from my dad, I feel like. But the final decision to me came down to, I want to play for a guy that, one, I'm going to enjoy my college experience as a golfer, but two, I do want to play this game professionally. And I want to play for a guy that I think will help me develop into the next level type player that I need to be. And I knew Jerry had Bill Haas come through there. Kyle Reifers had already had a couple years there. And Jerry played professionally in Europe and, on the PGA Tour. So he and I hit it off. And man, I didn't know what was coming, but he helped me so much with how to play the game, how to think about strategy, how to, think through playing a certain hole. And I learned so much through him. And I tell people this story because I can't think of my golf experience in college without thinking of this. I come in, as you said, the Arnold Palmer Scholarship. I leave senior year as the number one ranked junior player in the country. So there's all this expectation of me when I come to college. Well, I had an okay first year, not a great second year. And Christmas break's coming junior year. And right before I go home, Coach Haas calls me to his office. He knows I'm frustrated. I haven't won a college tournament yet. And we start talking. I'm basically in tears because I told him, I said, hey, you gave me the Arnold Palmer. I feel like I'm letting you down. I feel like I'm letting the school down. I haven't won a golf tournament. I haven't performed. It's been 2.5 years. And he said, hey, let me ask you something. When you came here in August of 2004, from then to now, do you think you're a better player? And I kind of thought about it. And I said, you know what? I'm definitely a better player. Like I can hit shots I couldn't hit then. My short game's better. I feel like I'm thinking my way around golf courses better. I'm just not getting results. And he said, well, you got to remember something. In this game, if you are improving, that's the only thing that matters. Results will come. And man, I left that meeting, Mike, feeling just, I exhaled. I felt this pressure leave me. And I come back second semester junior year, and I won my first tournament, Georgia Tech's tournament, the intercollegiate, I think it was called then, at Golf Club of Georgia. And end up winning a couple more times in the ACC championship my senior year. So the impact I realized after the fact that a coach can have and the words that the 5-minute conversation we had, how that changed my college career.
I love hearing that, because this podcast for me is about a lot of different things. One of it is the value of coaching. It's the value of the right words said at the right time to the right person. So I think that that's pretty valuable. And I know Jerry is a guy I have a lot of respect for, so it doesn't surprise me one bit that he could figure that out and help you.
Yeah, it was cool.
So you played a really good college career. Let's talk about a couple things. I want to talk about the 2007 Palmer Cup, because I was your coach there at East Valley. That was a heck of a team we had. Do you know how good that team was by any chance?
Do you have the names? I remember some.
I've got them all right here.
I want to hear.
Let's start with Dustin Johnson. That's a pretty good player.
That's a pretty good player. Life member of the tour.
Webb Simpson, he was okay. Billy Horschel, Chris Kirk, Brian Harmon, Luke List, Jamie Lovemark, and Jonathan Moore.
Wow. That's amazing.
That was a pretty good team. I think
one of my biggest memories that week was learning more about you and the great gift you have in eating food at a fast pace. So that was fun for me to learn about you.
Yeah, that's kind of you have to be good at something, right? So I can eat. I will say this: I'm not one of those. I'm not Joey Chestnut. I can't eat 50 or 60 hot dogs, in that quick a time. But I contend that I'm one of the world's fastest ice cream eaters because I don't get brain freezes.
Oh.
So I can eat it as fast as I can get it in my, just as fast as it can happen, and no brain freeze. So
that's a good skill. I don't know many people like that.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. But anyway, so I'm pretty good at that. You're really good at golf. I'm pretty good at eating fast. But that team, that team has won right at $180 million in prize money, 39 tour events, 2 majors, 2 FedEx Cups, a couple of players, and that's a pretty good stretch for a Palmer Cup team. My assistant coach who just went to Louisville, Brian Blagg, he was the assistant coach on what he thought was a pretty good team. But that was only 2 years ago, so we don't know what that team's going to do. I will say this. One afternoon, we had 8 singles matches, and I don't know if you remember this. We swept them 8-0.
Yeah, I remember that.
Okay. All right.
I remember that. I remember that more than who I played. I don't know who I played, but I remember that.
Yeah, we had a great team. And one of those players was a good friend of yours and a player of mine, Jonathan Moore. Really good guy. Jonathan's one of the good dudes in the game of golf, I still think today. But, what a team that was. I was so thrilled, so honored. And I consider it to be, to this day, one of the top 2 or 3 memories of my coaching career. Just had a lot of fun. And thank you for being such a great member of that team.
Oh yeah, I love that, and I love those team events. Are when I look back, those team events are some of the best memories that I have as well. Palmer Cup and Walker Cup, and college and amateur golf.
Well, that fall, that 6 of those 8 Palmer Cuppers were on the Walker Cup team, and you were one of them, and Jonathan Moore was as well. And you guys went to, I believe, Royal County Down.
Yep, Royal County Down. And Jonathan's at that Walker Cup, he hit maybe the greatest shot in Walker Cup history.
Describe that, because I've only seen it on video. I want to hear from your perspective.
Yeah, so he's a couple groups in front of me, and we had a decent lead going into Sunday, but they're making a big run. I mean, I'm hearing roars all day, and you can tell they're home roars. 18's this par 5, beautiful hole, a little bit dogleg left. And it's got, that course has that gunch where if you hit it offline, you don't go in and find your ball. It's the big thorns. So he stripes it down there, and he's got maybe 230 to a front right pin. And he hits 5-iron, lands it way short of the green because it's so firm. And it goes up to about 3.5 feet. And he ends up, I guess the guy he's playing makes birdie, so he has to putt it for eagle. And he makes it, and that was the deciding point where we won the Walker Cup. And I would give anything to go back and be able to be there in that moment, because if over half the team was already finished and waiting there on 18 green. So when he made that putt, it sealed the deal for the team. And it's got to be up there with one of the best shots ever.
Yeah, I've got a photo that Jonathan gave me of that putt he made, and Colt Knost, Billy Horschel, and Jamie Lovemark are all attacking him on the green as he made
Yep.
after he made the putt. Pretty
And I
great.
have a great memory on 17. My match is still going. Colt Knost has taken an American flag and he's running down from the green back to me in the middle of the fairway with the American flag. So that was when I realized we won.
That's pretty awesome. That's great. Well, before we leave your college golf experience, there's something that my assistant Mikkel asked me about. He's heard rumor that you used to like to play in the 5 slot, the number 5 man, often be paired there, and you had Coach Haas put you in that spot. What was the reasoning there?
So the reason was I wanted to go off first. I did not like waiting around all morning. At that point, I'm very methodical now and systematic and process oriented. Then I wasn't. I did everything fast. I mean, I'd warm up for 10 to 15 minutes and want to go play. I didn't do well with waiting around. So I was comfortable, in the 5 spot. I didn't really care that much then about being 1 or 5. I just wanted to go play. So that was the main reason.
Oh, good. I like hearing that.
Yeah.
He had asked about this. He says, I'm very curious. Why would he want to play the 5 man? Makes sense. But another thing that happened in college that I know that has been a big part of your life ever since was kind of your introduction to College Golf Fellowship.
Yep.
And Brad, I want you to unmute yourself and jump right in here. And you guys talk a little bit about CGF, what it meant to you, Webb, and Brad, your interactions with him and other college golfers.
Yeah. So honestly, the first time that I invited Webb to a CGF retreat was to a guy named Davis Love. He didn't know who he was, but he had done some things. But we were about 3 days from going to Davis Love's house, and Jay Moore, Jonathan Moore, his best friend all the way through junior golf and college golf, was coming. And they were rooming at what were you guys playing in? The Southeastern, or what were you playing in?
Yeah, maybe the Northeastern.
Okay, you were playing in the Northeastern. And so Jonathan and I were talking about, hey, do you need to get picked up, so forth, so on. He goes, I'm staying with Webb. You want to talk to Webb? I'm like, yeah, get him on the phone. And so I said, Webb, you live in North Carolina. Come on. You just need to come with Jay Moore. And he starts laughing. And then he goes, man, that sounds awesome. And what that means, translated in the realm of Webb Simpson, means there's no way I'm coming. And so we laughed about it. Jay Moore came. And then honestly, Webb and I really became really close beginning his rookie year. And he's one of those friends that I would go anywhere with. I mean, he's one of my dearest friends. And one thing that we get to do together is not just live life, but really do ministry together. And so Webb and I do other things and so forth out on the PGA Tour with other players in regards to mentoring rookies, to doing Bible studies with other players. But the one thing that you asked about was having retreats in their home. And Webb has had one at his home for many years. He's co-hosted it with Russell Henley. He's done it by himself. He's had other players come in. And just talk a little bit about, Webb, your experience just hosting with your family.
Yeah.
And his wife's name is Dowd. And there's 3 things that we promise, Mike, is in those 3, maybe 4 days, because Davis Love loves having 4-day retreats along with some other players. But in those 3 or 4 days, these are the things we promise. We promise that you will understand the gospel when you leave, how a holy God can have a relationship with a sinful human like me and you. And it's through his son, Christ. So they're going to have a clear understanding of the gospel. The next thing is that they're going to see that the Bible is the very living, breathing word of God, that it not applies to you when you die, but it applies to you right now, about your marriage, about your golf, really, about your golf, yeah, about your friendships, about how you raise your kids, how you live life. What do you deem as successful? And then the last thing is, and it's kind of 2 parts, is that you're going to see what a Christian home looks like, how Webb and Dowd interact with their kids, how they interact with each other, that they are sinners just like you and I, and they're going to have conflict. They're going to have a strong conversation. But one of the great things about a Christian marriage is that you really offer forgiveness. you seek forgiveness. And then one of the beautiful things is, because I have been forgiven, I can extend grace to my spouse. And in that, that emboldens, enlivens, and really cultivates our love for one another. And so in that, there is that Christian marriage, but also how me and Webb interact with one another, how this Christian golfer from North Carolina interacts with the NC State golfer or Wake golfer. And so you might not be exposed to what the Christian life looks like, but by their love, how they love one another, you go, there's something weird, odd, in fact, that draws me in, because I don't know what that looks like. I've never had a relationship like that. And so Webb and I are really close, not because we have similar personalities, is because we've both been transformed by the gospel. And in really quick time, Webb, I mean, we became really close. And it has nothing to do with our affections for golf. It has everything to do with our affections for our Savior.
That's right.
So tell me a little bit about just your experience with CGF hosting and so forth.
Yeah. So I want to speak to my first experience. I didn't know what to expect. I've been able to host a junior tournament, a high school junior tournament. Now we've done it about 10 years. So I was only used to that pre-hosting the CGF retreat. I quickly learned that college age ministry is very different than high school age ministry. Love high school ministry, but one of the differences, college ministry, the guys are a lot more mature. They're working through, struggling through those big life questions, meaning in life, what they're going to do next after college. Maybe some have had success at the college level, some are struggling, but they're really coming to grips and terms with, these are real things that I'm going to have to deal with for a long time. The weekend was so smooth, our first retreat. Brad's staff, 4 or 5 CGF guys, they ran everything. Dowd and I literally, we sat back and enjoyed it. We got to participate a little bit at night. Brad would call Dowd and I up, to talk through marriage, talk through life, talk through golf. And I think one of the highlights that I've learned through these retreats for these guys is to hear from Dowd, to hear about dating. What does a woman actually want from a guy? How does she want to be dated? How does she want to be talked to? And all those things that, when I'm talking, they might be listening, half-heartedly. When she's talking, they're locked in. So that was cool for me to see. But Brad encouraged Dowd and I a few years ago to get organized with our ministry partners. Where are we going to go deep with? And for a long time, have a few, not a lot, have a few, but really do life with those ministries. And when we sat down, we thought about CGF, and that was among those at the top of our list because of their ministry model, that these retreats are kind of highlights, for the ministry, but the day in, day out, the every day, every week work is getting these touches with these college teams, college coaches, the consistent study of God's word, making disciples. That's like the beautiful work, I feel like, that gets overlooked, when people think about CGF. The icing on the cake is these retreats that we blow it out. We have fun, we laugh, we do a service project within the city that we're in, or some sort of work where these guys are kind of given of themselves. And so we've loved it. The years we've missed, whether it's a baby or whatnot, we missed those years. And it was funny. My wife, after a couple years of hosting, she said that one of her favorite weekends of the whole year is hosting a retreat. And that just shows you, I'm going to love it. I'm around college golfers, but for 80 college boys to come in our house and for my wife to say that is really special.
That's great. Those are some of the best memories I have in my coaching career, are going to the College Golf Fellowship retreats like at Paul Stankowski's or Ben Crane's. We've been to a bunch of them, and they're great. So I'm glad to hear that you enjoy hosting them as much as you do. I know that young players get a front row seat of what it looks like to be a Christian athlete. So
absolutely.
appreciate that.
Hey, Mike, One of
Go
the
ahead,
things,
Brad.
just real quick, is, we do about 30 retreats a year all over the country. And just guys that are listening, that isn't only the thing that we do. We will come to your campus. And so for anyone listening, even if you're in high school, seek us out, because wherever you're going to go to college playing college golf, we probably have a staff guy. We have nearly 30 guys all over the country. Like, for instance, Travis Wolf comes to see the Baylor Bears, Sikkim Bears, on a very regular basis. And so that's just whoever is listening in regards to, if you're in high school or even in college, just reach out to us. And everything we do is free.
That's fantastic. That's great. Well, so there's where the relationship between you, Webb, and Brad and College Golf Fellowship began way back when, and great to see it's still going. But let's get you a little bit into your professional career if we can. You finished college as the Player of the Year in the Atlantic Coast Conference, had 4 great years, All-American several times. And then you played on some exemptions in the summer and fall of 2008, I think. But you went to tour school and got your card the first time, didn't you?
I did.
Not that normal. A lot of guys don't do it the first time around.
No, and I think I was naive about the whole process. I didn't really understand what it would mean. And I think that helped. I kind of went in blindly, just going to play. I went to second stage in Callaway Gardens in Georgia, got through, and then went to Palm Springs for 6 rounds. And I don't remember feeling crazy pressure, I think, because I didn't know what it really meant. I would quickly learn, almost losing my card my second year, about the pressure, because I certainly felt it. But yeah, I think just being a little bit naive really helped me get through Q school.
That's probably a good lesson right there for everybody. But so
Yeah.
You played for 2 or 3 years and you were having good success and doing well. And your breakout year was really 2011 when you won a couple of times. So I think, were you number 2 on the money list that year?
I was, yeah.
Yeah. So you had a breakout year. That's a great year, obviously. Okay, Webb Simpson, here I am, tour winner, that type of thing. But the biggest victory of your career came the next year at Olympic Club in San Francisco, the U.S. Open. Can you talk a little bit about that briefly? I know it's a great memory.
Yeah, well, what's funny is I went to Memorial 2 weeks prior and I missed the cut by 6 or 7 shots. My game was not in good shape. I go to California. I have a really bad Monday, Tuesday, and even Wednesday morning. And Wednesday afternoon, I remember we go to the right side of the range all by ourselves, away from everyone. And we just kind of have one of those sessions where we got to figure it out. We got to figure out something. Paul noticed, my caddy noticed a little something in my swing. I don't remember what it was at this point, but we worked on it for a while. I started hitting the ball in the center of the face again. And I felt like there was hope, at least for me to have a decent week. I go out round 1 and 2, played okay. I think I was at 5 over in about 28th or 9th place. And then Saturday, I shot 2 under, played really well, but I didn't think a whole lot of it. And then I realized at the end of the day, I'm in 8th place and I'm 4 back, and I'm going to be the 4th to last group on Sunday. Never had a chance at a major. And that week was special for me, Mike, apart from the golf. So my wife, Dowd, was out with me, just her and I. We had James at home. He's about 15 months old, but Dowd's pregnant with Willow, our daughter. She's about 35 or 6 weeks pregnant. And Olympic Club, as you guys are familiar with, is very hilly. She walked every hole. We had just had a special week. So I honestly went to bed Saturday night, and I remember having the thought, like, whatever happens tomorrow, it's been an amazing week that I've gotten to spend with my wife. I wake up Sunday. I'm not really thinking about winning, but I know I've got a chance if I play another good round like I did Saturday. I'm 2 over through 5, which I would say the first 6 holes there is the hardest stretch. But then I birdied 6, 7, 8, and 10. And when I birdied 10, I knew that I was right there in it. And, I remember a lot about that back 9. I remember having an incredible amount of fun, being nervous, but a good nervous. And I tell people there's 2 types of nervous. There's nervous when you're not playing good, and that's not fun. And there's nervous when you're playing well, and that's really fun. And so, yeah, I remember everything about the last few holes and waiting in the clubhouse for Graham McDowell and Jim Furyk to finish. And Mike, when Furyk hit in the bunker on 18 and it plugged, I knew he was probably out of it. And then Graham had this 22, 23 footer to tie me. And I remember thinking, I want to win. I don't wish anyone to play poorly, but what I don't want to happen is play 18 holes tomorrow. I want to be done for the week. And I told my wife, she at the time thought it was sudden death. She's like, what holes are we playing if he makes it? I said, no, we're playing 18 tomorrow. And so then he missed his putt, and I was, I won a major. So I was, all in all, I was trying to take it all in. I didn't know what just happened.
Hey, Webb, tell them about your chip shot on 18 and just what you were thinking.
Yeah.
Because what it does is it humanizes you. Because most of you are like, okay, he's really thinking about, okay, where should I leave it? And you're thinking, okay, if I hit this too hard, it's going to go down to the 150 marker.
So, yeah, Mike, I'm looking at this chip, pinch front left. I'm pin high right. I have a funny lie in the rough. I go up to the hole to kind of see what's going on. And I notice if I hit this long and a little bit left, about 12 feet, it catches the fringe, which is where every player had been walking, and it's burnout. It's like glass. And I looked, and this ball, it's like a bumpers in bowling. If it gets there, it's going to funnel down this hill. And every time it wants to get in the rough's going to push it back on this path. And Brad's right. I mean, it had gone 75 yards down the hill. And so I'm like, okay, I got to change where I'm aiming here. So I went from trying to hit it close to trying to hit it right of the hole. Anything inside 8 feet, I would have taken. So I aimed a little right and kind of chunk it out of there, and it goes down to about 4 feet, best case scenario. But it did go, if you see the footage, right at the hole, where if I hadn't noticed that patch of fairway, it might have been a different story. But I did not want to be the guy who hit a chip, 75 yards from the hole.
Well, when Bobby Jones won a U.S. Open one year, and he got over a tap-in to win the U.S. Open, and it suddenly occurred to him, what if I stub this and whiff the putt? And that was the greatest player of his generation. He was afraid. So it's understandable what you were going through.
Yeah.
So you're a U.S. Open champion. Obviously, that changes your life a lot. And you continued to play well for a few years. And then in 2016, something happened that I'm still kind of a little bit mad about, and I'm going to say it and let me say it first. But the United States Golf Association changed their rules on putting, on what was allowed and what you could and could not do. And I'm just going to read it straight out of here. The new rule is it prohibits strokes made with the club or hand gripping the club held directly against the player's body, or with a forearm held against the body to establish an anchor point that indirectly anchors the club. So in my best estimation, people had been anchoring for almost 30 years and winning golf tournaments, and several majors had been won with this style of putting, and you had won your major with this style of putting. And now they tell you you can no longer do it. So describe that, because if I don't know what I would have gone through had I been in that same position.
Yeah. Well, and what's funny, Mike? I'm still learning things about it. Bryson DeChambeau and I were talking a couple weeks ago. He said under the new written rule, the way Jack Nicklaus putted would have been illegal because the way his forearm was on his leg, and probably many other guys who putted similar to Jack. But yeah, so the story about the switch is a huge part of kind of my faith journey as well. We're at the Ryder Cup in 2014 at Glen Eagles in Scotland. I'd had a year of like the last 6 months of the year with the belly putter not putting that well. So Paul looks at me and said, hey, we're going to Japan in a month to play Dunlop Phoenix. What if we use the short putter then and we start a year early? We don't have to technically start till January 1 of 16, but let's start and get a year under our belt. We'll get the media and everybody's attention out of the way. And let's go ahead and start if we're going to start. So I go to Dunlop Phoenix, and, it was okay. I start out on the West Coast swing. I had a couple good tournaments, but it's very inconsistent. We kind of committed, hey, we're going to go 6 months or so with no putting coach, no instruction. We're going to try to figure out what's best for us. And then if we're struggling, we'll go see somebody. And kind of the faith element that I talked about, I was in our church's community group one night, and we're going around doing prayer requests. And I just said, guys, I'll be honest, like I'm struggling with anxiety. with putting. I feel huge amounts of anxiety. Certain times I feel embarrassed. I know I'm struggling with the approval of man, all those things. I said, but I just don't know what to do with it. So just pray for me. And my buddy Kevin Hale just prayed a real simple prayer that God would allow me to not find my identity in putting and not hope in putting. And it just,
Wow.
it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I remember talking to Brad about it, just the idea of hoping in something versus hoping for it. And Brad just said, hey, hoping for good putting is great. Hoping for winning 10 majors is great. But the difference is when we hope in it, two things will happen. If we get it, we won't be satisfied, because I believe and Brad believes and you believe the only thing that's fully satisfying is Jesus himself. And if we don't get it, if we're hoping in something and we don't get it, we'll never stop trying to get it. And so that made me realize that putting well was an idol in my life. Like I was sinning in the area of idolatry, believing the lie that if I do putt well, I'll be happy. That's the lie I believed. When all I had to do was look around on the PGA Tour. I'm not going to name names, but there's some great putters who are miserable human beings. And I don't mean that in a mean way. It's just true. But we know that's all true, that the world can give us what we want. We're not going to be happy. So honestly, Mike, that was a huge transition for me. I didn't start putting better overnight, but I started having less anxiety because I realized I don't need this to be satisfied and happy. And I just kept searching. I tried everything. At one point, I told my caddy, I said, I'll use a shovel. I don't care what it looks like. I just want to get the ball in the hole. So I was out here at Quail Hollow, played with Phil Mickelson the first 2 rounds, putted terrible, missed the cut. I go to Charlotte Country Club on Saturday of the Wells Fargo week, and I take this arm lock putter that I gotten from the Odyssey rep. And it felt uncomfortable, but I started making putts, and that kind of started me on this new path of a new style of putting, and putted better, but still inconsistent. And I show up with the Players in 2017, a year later. Tim Clark's on the putting green. He's already done playing golf, but he's just there seeing a couple guys, and he gives me a lesson. He just asked me to try the claw, and I tried it, and it felt great. But I don't know if I'm going to put it in play. Thursday morning rolls around. I'm about to go tee off. Paul, my caddy, asked me, what grip am I going to use? I mean, these are the conversations you have when you're struggling with something. You're deciding on which putter grip you're going to use 5 minutes before your tee time. And I kind of laughed and I said, I'm not sure yet. I'll let you know on one. So I went with this hybrid. Long putts, I would use conventional. Short putts, a claw. And it was the best 4 days of putting I'd had in years. And God, by his grace, has allowed me to have a few good years of putting. But as Brad's reminded me, which is just an invaluable lesson, that it might not be forever. And it might be for the rest of my career. We don't know. But if I continue to go back to the gospel that Christ is my only hope, I'm going to be able to play golf not knowing the future and sleep well at night, because it's not promised. Good putting is not promised, but I can do my part, work my hardest. And it's just put me in a place where I used to go out and have a good putting day, and I couldn't enjoy it because I would wonder, am I going to have a good putting day tomorrow? But now it's just being thankful for one day at a time. And so I wouldn't have been able to get to that place had I not been through 2 horrific years of putting, 180, 200, on the PGA Tour. So it's been a tough journey. I don't want to go back to it, but I'm thankful for it.
Well, I will say this, your best years on the tour have come, I mean, statistically speaking, have really come since the putting changed. So you obviously have made peace with it. And
Yeah.
you've learned to be successful with it. So that's great.
Hey, Mike.
One of the things that I'm curious about is I love people who do things their own way. I don't like cookie cutters. I don't like everybody. It's got to look a certain way. I think you have your own type of golf. I'd call it Webb Simpson golf. It's just you do it your own way. You're unique. And a lot of things you do are unique to you. So I guess the question I have is, you're a top 10 player in the world and you do it your own way. How have you been able to do that? Who are you listening to allow that to happen? So you say what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think my inspiration from a player wise is Bubba Watson. I've played a lot of golf with Bubba. Bubba doesn't have a swing coach, never has had one. And Bubba, even more than me, plays golf his own way. You know, he'll hit a draw from an open stance. He'll hit a cut from a closed stance. He'll do things that don't make sense, that TrackMan would spit back question marks to you. But he's so good. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer, 2-time major champ. And I think he's better at playing Bubba Watson golf than maybe he even realizes. And Mike, I know I'm never going to be able to drive it like Rory or Dustin. I know that. And I know that I've had a tendency to want to change my swing to make it look a certain way over the years. But I also know when I look at my stats, my strengths, maybe my number one strength in terms of consistently over the years has been approaches to the green. So just iron play. I've been able to have that strength with certain club positions that aren't ideal, or you wouldn't really teach what I do. So I think there's wisdom for me when I got to look at stats before I look at changing my golf swing. Just because my club head is inside my hands going back, that most players on PGA Tour don't look like that, doesn't mean I need to get it to look like them. Now, if my approaches to the green said so, that I need to change it, then I'll look at it. But, you know, if I'm able to bust that top 15 a lot of years, it must be working. And so I never have had the prettiest swing. My dad told me early on that it doesn't matter what it looks like. It matters what's on the scorecard. I've really taken that to heart. And I try to control what I can control. We always say that. Control your controllables well. I can't control the fact that Rory's going to hit it 40 yards by me and look pretty while he's doing it. But I can control my attitude. I can control, you know, how I bounce back after a bogey or double and mentally be ready for the next hole, the next shot. And so that's been a huge, I guess, strength for me, is focusing on what I can control and doing that to the best of my ability.
I really love that. I'm a big proponent in that. And every time somebody that I coach does something unique, if he's getting good results, I've got a notepad. I'm taking notes. I want to find out, because I think there's a lot more value in that than just trying to look like somebody else. And I think instruction has gone that way for the last 30 years, where if it looks good, it must be good. I just know this: if the ball goes where you're looking, then it is a good golf swing. And I think,
and Mike, I was just telling a buddy this morning, actually, I was talking to a buddy of mine who's playing golf. I told him, I said in 2016 or 2017, I can't remember which year, but it was the best my swing had ever looked on film. And it's the worst I've ever hit the ball in my life. I was playing in Palm Springs, La Quinta Country Club, pretty wide fairways, but there's trouble on both sides every hole. So it's one of those, if you're driving it well, you'll never hit it in trouble. But I hit this low toe hook on 11 that probably carried 220 yards. I'll never forget it, because I thought, I've never hit a shot like that as a pro. And yet we got my swing on film yesterday, and every position on the backswing looks perfect. Every position on the downswing looks perfect. I'm nailing these spots. And so Paul and I, my caddy, we always go back to that lesson we learned, that I need to play golf my way, swing it my way. But still, I have a huge value for fundamentals, as long as they're kind of within our playbook.
that's great. That's great. And again, you play Webb Simpson golf. I don't know if you could play anybody else's golf anyway. You shouldn't try.
Yeah.
So that's a great lesson for a lot of young people to know, and actually for veterans on the tour to know, and certainly for college players that I coach. If you are who you are and you've figured out how to do it your way, that's the best plan. We've experienced kind of an unusual year. We're in a pandemic right now. So I just want you to just describe a couple of things that you've noticed that are totally different about professional golf in the pandemic. Then some of them may be obvious, but just something.
Yeah, I mean, I would say good things is, because guys are trying to stay in the bubble, I feel like guys are they're staying together more. They're hanging out the golf course a little longer at night, having dinner. A lot of these tournaments are providing dinner for us. So the PGA Tour, one thing I was surprised about when I got on tour was how the lack of community. Guys, and I realize guys have families, they're going back, they're doing their own thing. But since the pandemic, there's no childcare. Families aren't traveling as much. So I think guys are becoming better friends. Guys are renting houses together more so than before. In terms of the golf, it's it was very weird at first at Colonial, making a 30-footer for eagle and nobody clapping. And I think we've all gotten used to it. Now, come 10 days from now at the Masters, I think it's going to be weird all over again, walking around that place with no fans. But I think we're seeing historically, some of the greatest scores ever shot on the PGA Tour. I do think a lot of it has to do with no fans. I think having to make birdie on 18 to make a cut for a rookie or a guy who's second year on tour, it's easier with no fans. There's less pressure. There's no grandstands, and all that stuff matters. I mean, it seems like guys are shooting 20, 25 under every week, but I know a lot of us want to get back to having fans, because if you're not near the lead or in contention, it's hard to draw momentum, if you're in 30th place with no fans. I mean, they do add value to us in our performance.
Well, and they are the people that are buying the golf clubs that your companies you're sponsored by. I mean, it's all tied together. Fans are very important to the game, but okay. I just wanted to know what you thought the main differences were. I'm really glad to hear that maybe the community is getting a little tighter amongst the players. I like that.
I think so.
That's great. Well, speaking of the Masters, you're going to be playing there next week, and talk to me about Augusta in November. Have you been to the golf course recently, by the way?
No, I haven't been, and I'm not going to go until Monday of.
Okay.
And I hear it's going to be similar. Supposed to have slightly cooler temperatures. We do the same overseeding process here at Quail and about the same time frame. And typically for us here in November, the golf course is really good. It's fully grown in, but it's a little softer. I don't know how they'll do it at Augusta, but the golf course is going to have to be harder, I think. It's just going to play longer.
Well, I guess then that helps the Bombers out a little bit then.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, that's all right. You'll just have to do a lot of other things better.
I'm going to get my hybrids ready.
You got it. I would think when I was 16 years of age, I remember Ray Floyd using a 5-wood all week long and birdieing or eagling every par 5 the whole week, just hitting 5-woods on the green. So maybe that's what you'll do, something with a hybrid.
Yeah, I got a bunch of head covers: driver, 3-wood, 5-wood, 3-iron hybrid, 4-iron hybrid.
That's strange. That's different, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I need some height. I'm not a high spin long iron player, and Augusta's. I mean, I'll hit 5 or 6 hybrids into greens each day.
What do you hit the number 5 these days?
Well, last year I hit 3-wood off the tee, believe it or not, 3 times. Because if I hit driver last year, I'm going to have probably a 4-iron or 3-iron in. 5-iron or 4-iron in. If I hit 3-wood, I'm going to have a 3-iron or 5-wood in. It's kind of all the same. But with 3-wood, I take the bunkers out of play. So if I pull a driver, I'm in the bunker, I'm laying up. If I pull 3-wood, I'm still fairway. So we just said, you know what? I don't care if it's another club. I don't want to be in that bunker. It's a monster of a hole.
It is a monster of a hole. And they've moved that bunker through the years with the way they've moved it, but still it's in play. It's crazy.
Yep.
Well, we have a speed round here in a second to end on, but I want to wish you, first of all, good luck, play well, go knock them dead there at Augusta. And Brad, thank you again for joining us today.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. But we do want to wish you the best next week at Augusta. Webb. Best of luck, play well. But I'm going to do a speed round with you right now. Are you ready for these?
I'm ready. I think I'm ready.
Okay, I think you are, right. Here we go. Favorite practice round playing partner?
Bubba Watson.
All right. Favorite pro sports team?
Carolina Panthers.
Worst club selection Paul Tesori has ever given you?
I love that question.
Oh, there's so many.
Yeah. How to choose. I don't really know a terrible one off the top of my head. He did tell me last week at Zozo, he thought driver was good on 13. It wouldn't run out, and it ran out in the rough. I had to lay up. Okay. He apologized. We're good. I agree with him too, but I joked that it was his fault.
Okay. Well, so he'll make a mistake. You'll make a mistake. It's all
That's right.
All right. Your choice. Remember the Titans or Shawshank Redemption? Which are you going to watch in a pinch?
Remember the Titans. I'm a Denzel fan.
That's good. Favorite golf course on the PGA Tour?
Harbor Town.
Nice. How many holes in one have you had in competition?
2. 3.
How many shanks have you had in competition?
Wow.
About 11. 11 team.
11 team.
11 team. What do you mark your golf ball with?
What do I mark it with?
Yep.
I highlight the T in Titleist with a red Sharpie and circle the number.
Okay. How many times have you lost to Brad Payne playing golf?
Ooh.
A couple.
Okay. He's pretty good. Now,
He is good.
The truth is, he and I scrambled against Ricky Fowler one time, and Ricky closed us out 3-2.
Hey, but he pulled his hammy trying to race. Who were you racing?
I don't know who I was racing.
He was racing someone the week before or a couple days before. So he pulled a hammy. All he was doing is hitting driver pull hooks about 100 yards.
Well, that's
I have
about
no
40 yards
chance.
shorter
Like
where I
me,
normally hit it.
Hey, like me at La Quinta.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Pre-round breakfast, your go-to before an early round.
2 eggs over medium, potatoes, 1 piece of bacon, and some oatmeal with berries in it.
Very good. Chick-fil-A or Chipotle?
Oh, depends on the meal. Breakfast, lunch, Chick-fil-A. Dinner, Chipotle.
Okay. My assistant said, Mikkel said it would be Chick-fil-A for sure, but he's wrong. Favorite PGA Tour chaplain, Brad Payne or Stephen Bunn?
Brad Payne.
That's so smart.
Yes,
to say that.
absolutely.
And then the final question.
Mine too, Webb. Mine too.
Final
Hey,
question.
when we do this podcast with Steven, I'll pick Steven.
Okay.
No, you wouldn't.
One last question. One bit of advice you would have, just one piece of advice for young players, college players, junior players, one bit of advice.
Great question.
I have one too, so think about it.
Okay. If they're aspiring to be to play as a pro, I would tell them two things. I got to give 2. 1, figure out why they do what they do, when they play well, when they play poorly. VJ was stuck on 9 wins when he was 40 years old. He figured out why he hit it left under the gun, and now he's sitting on 34 wins. And that was huge for me. I figured out some whys in my golf game, and that's when I started improving. Second, I would say you look at the top 30 players in the world consistently, they have a team around them of people who make them better. You don't have to have everybody. You don't have to have the sports psych, the trainer, the this, the that, but you need to develop, as you turn pro, a team of people you trust that you think can get you continually to that next level. And that's what's pretty common among all the top players.
Great advice. Brad, you had a question for him.
No, I didn't have a question, but he kind of alluded to it at the end. One of the things about Webb, and he wouldn't say this, is that he is quick to share his weakness, quick to share his fear and anxiety. And it's the exact opposite of what we think. We have to put ourselves and make ourselves look like we have no struggle. And then we'll just struggle within. And it's that consistent theme that I'm the only one. I'm the only one. And it really cycles down to a lot of despair and slavery. But one of the things that Webb did, especially with putting, is he is very open about his struggle. And what that does is it brings people in. And the amount of people that he was able to and continues to minister to out there, not in his strength of being whatever, 6th in the world or whatever it might be. It's more of in his frailty, in his anxiety, in his weakness. People are drawn to him. And what it does is it allows him to have things open-handed. And he goes, yeah, I am an idiot. And that's okay. And he's able to kind of walk with a lot of freedom, a lot of grace. And so what draws people to him is really his humility. And so that's one of my great memories, as well as what draws me to my friend Webb is really his frailty, and he's very open about it.
Thanks, buddy.
That's great. There's great strength in humility and vulnerability for sure.
Thank you.
Well, guys, thank you so much. Today has been a pleasure for me. Thank you for joining us on the Better Than I Found It podcast, Webb. And again, all the best to you as you continue to compete.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate you having me on.